All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted One-on-One from my basement, soon to be studios over at the Junction in Old Hilliard, sometime in April. Just put this together on the fly, but I have a guest with me today, Mr. Ben Tanner. Ben, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we will go from there.
Sounds good. Hey, I'm Ben Tanner. I play guitar, I recorded music, and I also have a website about learning how to play the guitar and also like reviews gear and stuff like that. Learning guitar and things like that today. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, and we connected because it's a very small world. So I think it was just an email, and then there was an email back and forth a little bit. And I said, why don't you come on? So I am a hack when it comes to the guitar. Anybody that's I don't go out professionally and play or anything. So, but everybody probably knows, anybody that listens to this regularly knows that I have a guitar. That doesn't mean I can play said guitar, but I do have one. And I enjoy it. It's actually it's a good release for me at times. And I like to see if I can figure out how to play certain songs and those kind of things, but I am by no means good. And we were talking a little bit offline, but I figure by the end of this podcast, I should know how to play bar chords and finger picks. So no pressure on you, Ben, but that's my expectation before we're done. So not really.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we could do a little mini lesson if you wanted to or something.
Well, it's great to have you on, and I want to talk about the website. So we were starting to talk offline. Why don't you go ahead and tell your story? Tell us about guitar, like just when did you get started?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so it's Yeah, so it's been about 20 years since I started playing guitar. And coincidentally, it was literally the day I graduated from high school. I had taken piano lessons as a kid, so I knew a little bit about music, but I'd never played guitar before. And so I went to my friend's graduation party, and he had a guitar and he had a chord chart on the wall. So I kind of knew what chords I wanted to play just based on my musical background. I was like, oh, okay, if I can find these 3 or 4 chords, it'll probably sound good. And so I picked up his guitar. I kind of saw how to play those 3 or 4 chords, I think. And I kind of started doing it. And then I started making up a song. And so it all just kind of came together pretty quickly, I guess, because I had that background. But then since then, I've played a lot and I've gradually gotten better. I'm certainly not a virtuoso. I'm not that person you'd see in a concert. Like, yeah, so I wouldn't be making your face melt in a concert or anything. But I would say that not only have I gradually gotten better, but I've had some pretty cool experiences because I've done a lot of performing, not only in talent shows, but some like bigger events, especially when I was in college, and also ended up recording an album, which that was also when I was in college, and it was mostly me, but also a couple of my roommates, and it turned out pretty well. And so to this day, I haven't really recorded like a follow-up album, but we have one like pretty good one that we made back in the day. So
Wow.
And then more recently, I thought I had some stuff that would be useful to share online. So I made a website about how to learn how to play the guitar, and then it also kind of reviews some, gear of like helping people find the right guitar for them and things like that. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Very cool. So, and a lot of questions that came out of that. So first of all, what were the 4 chords you learned? G? It had to be G. I'm going to guess G, C, D, and E minor.
Well, that's the funny thing. So those would be the 4 if you were just trying to think of like 4 easy chords on a guitar.
Or the 4 that I can play.
Sure. But since I had played the piano previously, I was thinking like a piano player. So like the easiest chords to play on the guitar would be the ones you mentioned, the G, C, D, and E minor.
Right.
But since I came from a piano background, for me, the easiest way to play is to play in the key of C, which is just all the white keys, and you wouldn't play any of the black keys. So I started with the C chord, and then I went to actually F, G, and A minor in some order.
Yeah.
So the hard part about that is because it includes one
Bar chord.
bar chord,
Yes.
which is F. And so that was kind of hard to do, like from at the very start
Yeah.
when I was first learning. But the other three are pretty easy. So it was like I'd have that one that didn't sound quite as good, and then I'd play the other three kind of thing.
And honestly, I mean, I don't know how many guitar, professionals are listening, or if anyone's listening, but I know that's always what trips me up is the bar chords. The what is it, B minor and F. Those two get me every time. So if I look at some tab, if I pull off something off the internet and I see some tab and I see an F, I move on to the next song because I don't think I could do it. Now I do. I'm getting there, and I'm sure if I practice religiously, like I really really wanted to, I'm sure you could get there eventually. But if you started with a bar chord, then that, I gotta imagine that opened up a whole new world for you.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So not immediately, but like pretty quickly figured out that if I could play the F chord, which kind of looks like that,
Right.
then I could slide my hand up and down and kind of play infinite other chords basically with that. And like you mentioned, the B or B minor. So there's like a couple key positions, and then you can slide those ones up and down.
Yeah.
So a quick tip for you, since you mentioned how like if you see an F, you kind of shy away from the song. So I don't know if this will make sense just describing it, but there's kind of two ways that you can play the F more easily.
Okay.
And one of them is you just take your index finger and you kind of just only push down the bottom two strings at the very bottom, and then the rest of your fingers are in the same position. So you don't have to do the whole bar, you just do it like at the bottom. But
Okay.
even easier than that is if you just do what's called like a power chord.
Mm-hmm.
So you're only playing the strings at the top, which are like the biggest strings at the very top. So you could do like 3 strings, and so you only press one string down with your index finger, and then you use your pinky finger and your ring finger to press down 2 other strings, so 3 total strings. And then when you strum, you kind of only hit those top strings. So it sounds a little lower, like it's because it's just kind of the bass notes, but that's the F chord, and then you can slide up and down really easily.
All right, well, I'm here for easy. So that actually is very helpful, and I might try that later tonight because the F chord is one that I just hate. So that is very helpful. So all right, so then you learn that, and then you went on your thing. Do you have a full-time job, I assume, and then this is just a hobby, or is this your full-time job?
So I had a full-time job until recently. It's been about 1 year now. So I work in the emergency room as what's called a physician assistant, or
Okay.
PA.
Mm-hmm.
So similar to a doctor, just our education's a little different, but we kind of do mostly the same thing. And so I did that full time since 2014. And then a year ago, I switched to part-time. So I'm still doing it. I don't do it as often. So now I'm spending a little bit more time like building up the website and things like that. And so just kind of mixing and matching. And it's been a weird time to switch to working part-time because, of course, then there was the pandemic. And then I was like just kind of at home doing my thing most of the time.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what I'm up to. Yep.
So completely off the topic, were you pulled in quite a bit because of the pandemic, or no, because of your role?
Right. So that's a common question. And I think it depended on what part of the country you were in and things like that.
Right.
So in Las Vegas, as soon as they started doing where they were like closing all the businesses and stuff, they also kind of closed down travel. And so usually we have all these tourists and then they all went away.
Right.
And they also closed the businesses. So people were staying home more and stuff like that. So mostly that meant that we had fewer patients in the ER, at least in the middle of last year. And then it's kind of been up and down since then. I think a lot of people have kind of started new habits where they just don't go to the hospital as much.
Right.
At least temporarily, So overall, there's actually been less work for part-time people like me, as opposed to like getting pulled in for all these crazy shifts when it's super busy. So I'm sure if I was in New York City or something, it would have been different, but that's how it was for me.
Did you get your vaccine shot?
Yes.
Good. So you have both of them then?
Yeah. So it was kind of serendipitous because I got an email from our director in mid-December saying, if you're interested, just write back. And I said, yeah, but I'm part-time, so I don't need to be first on the list. But he just added me to the list, I guess. And then somebody called me a couple of days later. So I got my first shot before Christmas and my second one like a week after New Year's.
Well, I mean, for those reasons, for being on the front line for us, thank you, first of all. And second of all, I'm glad you've got the vaccine because it's
For,
important. It's very
for sure.
important. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm glad
I
you
mean,
got
I
that.
feel a little funny when people say like, "Oh, thanks for working on the front lines," because I don't work as often anymore.
Yeah, but even 5 minutes isn't more than most of us do. So, I mean, and I think we all appreciate the past year, anyone that's put themselves in that position. And really, you guys were the front lines. You were facing this pandemic, whether it was part-time, quarter time, full time. You're still putting yourself in harm's way, for lack of a better term, with the pandemic. So thank you for that, and it shouldn't just be cast aside. You put yourself. Most of us are staying home with a mask on and a hazmat suit, and you're out there helping people. So for that, thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and it's certainly kind of a weight off my shoulders to have the vaccine, because
Yeah.
now I feel more comfortable when there's the 95% chance that I'm immune, basically, more or
Right.
less, for
Right.
sure.
For sure. Okay, so back to the website. So you've had some time on your hands, and honestly, that's why I had a country song teacher, a friend of mine. I wouldn't say good friend, but a friend of mine that I've come to know through the podcast. I had him on because he's got a great YouTube channel, and again, back to the pandemic, a lot of us were sitting home with nothing to do, and so I think either people went out and bought a guitar, maybe they got one for Christmas, or they dusted off one that's been in their storage area because we all needed something to do. So for people like myself, what does the site offer?
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, it's certainly a work in progress, but some of the examples of stuff we've got on there is I've got a list of like some of the best places you can find free online guitar lessons. And so I think that's a really good starting point for a lot of people, because it's just like, how do I learn? And it's a mixture of some different websites and YouTube channels and things, but for free, without spending any money, you can learn a ton. Obviously you need a guitar, but
Yeah,
but
right.
in terms of like the lessons and the instruction, and then I have other articles that answer common questions and things like that, and a couple other like tutorials about how to strum the guitar different ways and stuff like that. There are also some reviews of like what guitar you might want to buy for your kid, or for a certain style of music, or like acoustic versus electric, and things like that. So might have some helpful information as well about like what kind of guitar to buy if you don't already have one. So maybe like you've got one, and I think in your closet or wherever it is. But yeah, that's kind of what I have so far, and it's a work in progress. So I'm planning to do a lot more over the course of this year.
Very cool. And what's the driver behind that for you? Is it you just want to share that gift that you've experienced, or what drives you to start the website?
It's certainly a combination of things. So I like music really has added a lot of richness to my
Mhm.
life, and
Mhm.
I've really enjoyed being able to be creative with improvising on the guitar, or making up a song, or learning some song that somebody else wrote, but then usually you add your own flavor to it, right? So there's a lot of like creativity, which I think is very kind of stimulating for mentally and emotionally and so forth. And so I did want to spend more time talking about that and kind of sharing it with other people. I can make money from the website as
Mhm.
well, because
Sure.
some of the products that we review, like if people click on a link and then end up buying something, then we can get a tiny percentage of like what they spend, and so that can potentially add up and kind of make it worth our while in the long run.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's also a topic that I kind of love talking about as well.
You mentioned an album. Is that on Spotify and Apple and those kind of things, so where people can go hear it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's on Spotify, and it's also on YouTube. In that, like it was some years ago, I added it to a website called CD Baby, and that
Okay.
was it's kind of they facilitated getting it onto iTunes and stuff. So I think it's still on iTunes. I don't check every day or anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they also kind of automatically uploaded all the songs just as audio to YouTube. And so I made a playlist out of that as well that I sometimes share with people. So it's in a few different places. Yeah.
What's the name of the band if I was looking for it?
So it's kind of silly. So the name is Cows Never Die.
Okay. Honestly, as
And
soon as
then,
you kind of got that smile on your face and says kind of silly, I didn't know where we were going to go. So cows never die is much better than some of the things that ran through my mind.
so yeah, that's like the group name, and then the album is called She Usually Wears Mittens.
Perfect. Cows
And
never
that's
die.
related to one of the songs, the first song. Yep.
So we got cows never die, and she usually wears mittens. And
Right.
what kind of genre am I looking for when I click play? What am I going to hear?
Yeah. Um, so a couple comparisons first, I guess.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Uh, I don't know if you're familiar with Flight of the Conchords. No. Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm
So
not.
they're from,
I'm
no.
not.
Okay. So they're from New Zealand.
Okay.
And they did some albums and some concerts, and later on they got famous through movies. Like one of them wrote some of the music in Moana, and one of them wrote some music for a Muppet movie that won a Grammy, or an Oscar or something. Anyway, so they're a comedy folk group.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've done a lot of different things. They're hilarious if you want to check them out, Flight of the Conchords. But another comparison is, if people hear me sing, they often say, "Oh, you sound like the guy from Bare Naked Ladies."
Okay,
I've heard
so
that several.
all right. So when you said comedy folk group, my first thought was, okay, is that like Bare Naked Ladies? Because I know they're pretty funny, yet it's catchy. So okay, so are we thinking like Bare Naked Ladies? Is that what we're talking about? Cows never
Well,
die.
So I mentioned those two because you got the comedy aspect, and there's a slight similarity in the sound, and because Bare Naked Ladies was mostly acoustic, they weren't really
Yes.
like heavy rock.
Okay.
So we got some of that. So we got like similar vocals, some harmonies, mostly acoustic rock or more.
Listening to this, we've had some technical issues, so if it's at all splotchy, and it's blame me because I'm the guy editing it. But there's some good stuff here.
Probably my internet connection. Yeah.
So sort of like the Bare Naked Ladies, but not. Some comedy, some folk, some acoustic, I think is what we got out of that. So bottom line is go check it out, right? It's like driving by a restaurant and you don't know what's inside. So we gotta go find Cows Never Die and give it a try. And who knows, man, maybe it'll end up being a soundtrack for Unscripted one day. Who knows? All right, back to guitars. So do you play more than just acoustic, or you just play acoustic?
So I usually play acoustic. The guitar that I just grab when I want to fiddle around it has nylon string, so it's kind of a classical guitar.
Mhm.
It's just because it's easier to play the nylon
Right.
string, just easy on my fingers and stuff. I also have an electric guitar. I looked over there because that's where it is in the corner, and I don't use it that often just because it takes a little longer to set up and stuff. I mean, 5 minutes is.
Right.
Or less, but but usually I'm happy enough to just grab the acoustic and play around with that.
All right. So and you may be giving away some of the website stuff. So if it is, just say look at my site. But what is your favorite brand? I'm a Takamine guy because Garth Brooks plays it. So what's your favorite brand?
Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of ironic because in some of the like reviews and stuff we do talk about like brands, but historically, like I never paid that much attention to what brand of guitar I was using.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of didn't care. I wasn't one of those people who was like, oh, I got to have the best guitar from the best brand. I would just play it and see if it felt good or whatever. But I mean, there's certainly I like some of the ones that I've used that friends have that are like a little more expensive, a little more high end. So
Yeah.
like whether it's certainly Gibson is one of them. There's another one I'm drawing a blank on. I'll let you know if I think of it in a second.
Taylor?
But yeah, actually Taylor is one of those, like because my roommate in college had a nice Taylor guitar. And so I enjoyed playing that. So that's kind of the higher end. And then my own guitars are honestly not like particularly high end, so to speak. I've been meaning to like buy another one, but I have two. So I guess I have enough for the moment.
Right. But I think they become yours. And the first one I ever bought, and this is, I'm interested to see your feedback. The first one I ever bought was a Yamaha, and you have to help me. Is it Epiphany or Epiphone?
Oh, that's funny. I would say Epiphone,
Okay.
but I guess I don't know if there's an official,
All right.
answer.
All right. Well, we'll call it Epiphone, and I'm sure some guitar guy just drove off the road listening to this, like guitar
Yeah.
guys listen to my show. But anyway, but no, I never knew if it was an Epiphany or an Epiphone, and I'm not bright enough to know. But either way, that was my first guitar. I got it like some used guitar shop. I think I paid $100 for it. And I was just banging away on that thing. And I thought I was starting to feel real good about myself. And then one day, a friend of mine, to your point, I think he brought over, maybe he had a Yamaha or something. And, the neck was completely different. And he sits down. So then I borrow it for a second and I'm like, all right, I got to upgrade because, I think so that's my question is, I think for anybody starting out, you get those $100 guitar packages, which are great. They come with a CD and a bag and a gig bag, a guitar. There might be a tuner in there. They throw all that stuff in a bundle. That's okay, right? I mean, it's a good place to start. And my question, I think, for you is do you reach a point where your $100 guitar, you're going to cap out and you can't really tell anymore if you're getting better and it's a $100 guitar, or if you need to, you know what I'm saying, or if you're just not getting better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense at all?
Sure.
Okay.
So I guess a couple suggestions for beginners. Like you said, I mean, you can go get that package deal with the guitar and some picks and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think comfort's really important.
Right.
So it's not always the most expensive guitar that's going to feel the most comfortable. There's just like a few key things that go into that. So mainly it's the type of strings, the action, which is how high like the strings are from the fretboard, like how far you have to push them down.
Right.
Those are the main two. And then kind of the type of guitar, like acoustic versus electric as well. So I think for most people, it's a little frustrating if you get a guitar and it's like pretty hard to push the strings down at the beginning.
Right.
So the two ways to deal with that, one is you could consider getting either an electric guitar or a classical nylon string guitar.
Yes.
Because in both cases, it's a lot easier to push the strings down. So I think if you've never gotten a guitar before, you should definitely go to a store and just try it out. Like just learn 2 chords or something so you can just try it on several guitars and kind of see what it feels like. But yeah, like the type of strings and the type of guitar. It's quite a bit harder if you get like the full-blown steel strings from the very start versus the nylon or like the thinner strings that are on an electric guitar. And then number 2, I mentioned the action. So the action on a lot of guitars is actually adjustable. You may or may not be able to do it yourself. I've never done it myself. But if you take it to a shop, I think it's called a luthier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but like a guitar technician can kind of adjust that up and down to comfort, because you don't want it to be too high because it's awkward, like I said, but you don't want it to be way too low because then it's going to buzz more when it hits the wrong little frets and stuff. Yeah. So to find the right balance on the guitar action is the other thing.
And is it, and I don't know my terminology perfectly, but is it like the nut or something like that? That's a lot of times it's underneath the fretboard, right inside the hole for some of them, but some of them it's up at the top, right? The neck, it's at the top of the head of the guitar has that little, I know the one I first got had that, but I don't know.
Right. There's a rod that can kind of adjust the tension in the whole like neck or fretboard. Yeah. And so by doing that, it kind of moves it a little bit. So that's part of it. Yeah.
And a good guitar shop will do that for you. I know Guitar Center, last I saw, they were Chapter 13, so I don't know if they're still going to be around. But if they are, I know they'll do that. I think they even do it for free for you when you buy your first guitar. They'll kind of do that. And maybe I'm speaking out of school for them because they might charge for it, but I know they do it. They got their little kickstand thing that they put it on, and they kind of help you out and get it really set up. And I think that is critical because when you're first met, you could be playing the highest level Martin or Taylor that they have and sound terrible because you just don't know how to play them yet. But I think you do reach a point where you're playing it right, but your guitar is not helping you out at all. Like you said, the action's too high or the strings. There's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize.
Yeah, and like a lot of people complain that like their fingers hurt.
Yes.
And that
Right.
And that's exactly like those are the solutions. It's called a truss rod, actually, just to fill in. So a truss rod, that's the one that you can kind of use to adjust the action. So some guitars have adjustable ones and some don't. So, but anyway, yeah, like if your fingers are hurting, like the nylon strings can help, or lowering the action can help, or like the main things. Yeah.
I know it was like a victory the day that I got calluses, and they really got hard enough to where, because for some people that's I didn't start with that, and I had no idea what I was doing, so I just kept working away, and my fingers started to get calluses on those key fingers, and it was actually helpful because then it became easier to press those keys with those fingers. But now they have new strings that you can try that you don't have to go through that process. But I know I celebrated the day, like I'm like, look, everybody, I got calluses. look at my fingers.
Yeah, I remember that like 20 years ago, and
Right.
and it was because I mean you literally like lose the feeling in the very tip
Yes.
of your finger a little bit, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So like, and it's been that way ever since. Like I kind of never, I don't usually even think about it. You're probably the same way, but
Yeah.
it's like it's my left hand and I'm right-handed and whatever. But yeah, it's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah, you celebrate that day. So do you have a YouTube channel or social medias as well, like Instagram and Twitter and those kind of things that you utilize, or is it just the website?
So technically I do, but I haven't really done anything with them yet, like the Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. So it's pretty much just the website for now. I'll probably start doing more with the other stuff later. I mean, I've probably tweeted like 10 times and I don't have very many followers on Twitter yet. So it's probably not really worth checking out yet, but so I would I'd go to the website.
Okay. And if there's a question that somebody has, not do you do requests, but if somebody's got a question, they're beginning, they're learning, and they have a question for you, do you have like a forum or a contact page that they can get to you through, or how's that work on the website?
Yeah. So on the website, there's a contact page, has a contact form. I think it's strummingly.com/contact, but there's a link. Bottom, there's a contact link. You can go fill out a contact form if you have any questions or anything for me. That I'd be more than glad to field those. And then my email address is pretty easy as well. It's just Ben, BEN @strummingly.com. And then on the website, there's a search function if you just want to like look for something specific. That's on the top right. But also that's on the menu, it's just divided up into like the learning resources for just to kind of teach you how to play, and then the stuff related to like equipment, like best guitar for kids or what have you.
Okay, awesome. Well, there's been a lot here to go through. I'll have all this in the website and the links below it. Certainly the Cows Never Die link on Spotify. I will find that. I promise you I'll find that. And we will get that up. And She Wears Mittens. The record hit, She Wears Mittens. So no, it's all good, man.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it. It's a Friday night, so I'm probably going to go listen to that and have that on this weekend and give you guys some listens. But no, this is good. So one last freebie for the audience. And again, this is unscripted, so I haven't talked. One last freebie for the audience, and if you say go to my website, that's fine too. But one last freebie. How do you finger pick? Because I can't do that either.
How do you finger pick?
What's like? Is there? So you gave me my bar chord. I'm gonna go try that later. How do I finger pick? And I need the Cliff Notes version. Not like I don't want to go. Like I don't want to practice it. I just want to be able to go do it. So how do I finger pick?
Gotcha. Yeah. So all right. So the way I actually learned finger picking from a book.
Okay. Exactly.
But it explained one technique that I found pretty easy. It might have a name. Like I'm not always an expert on these things. Like it's probably similar to what they call Travis picking or something. But don't quote me on that because again, that's not like
we're unscripted.
My thing is like knowing all the different names for it. But anyway, it's basically you just use your thumb and your index finger, and I can demonstrate it if you want. But you just use your thumb and index finger, and your thumb's kind of just hitting like the top bass note and then the one below it, kind of alternating. And then your index finger is kind of hitting like the lowest note. I mean physically the lowest. Technically, it's the highest pitch or whatever. It's just hitting that bottom note, bottom string, I should say. Okay. And then kind of hitting the bottom one and then the one above it. So you're just kind of alternating between the two.
Okay.
Do you want me to grab my guitar and just show you what it looks like?
Absolutely. Why not? This will be an unscripted first. So I'm going to talk while you Ben, go get your guitar. I'm going to talk while people are on the road. If you're watching this, you can see Ben is going to grab his guitar right now. If you're listening, he's on his way back right now. He's got his guitar in hand, and we are going to learn to finger pick right here on Unscripted. It's an unscripted first.
So I'll just show you a really easy finger pick.
Okay.
Let me change the angle here.
There we go. So anybody listening on the podcast, you got to go to the video and watch it.
Okay.
So take it away, Ben.
Hopefully it's in tune. So here's like a
there you go.
C chord that we talked about earlier. So my thumb, or let's do G just because it's easier to demonstrate. So it might be slightly different than I explained it. So I'm just hitting the top string and the bottom string first.
Okay.
And then I'm just alternating there's these other two strings, which are the G and the B.
Okay.
I'm just going duh, duh, duh. So it's just those three notes in between. So just go. So this is the simple version.
All right.
And then you could go a little further and do something like.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, then I was like messing up. But so that's just like the really easy, and then the slightly more. So if you start with the easy one, and then eventually once you get comfortable,
you work your way up. Perfect. All right, so that was a unscripted first, including technical issues. All good. We're gonna test my editing skills on this episode for sure, but that was an unscripted first. We had a live guitar lesson, finger picking 101. Awesome. That's just awesome.
Yeah, so
what you're gonna get,
that
right?
kind of made sense. I know it was a little choppy, but also maybe hard to explain if someone was just listening or anything.
Perfect. No, but actually it sounded wonderful. So if I need a background, soundtrack for Unscripted, I know who to call, because that honestly, it was very peaceful and it sounded awesome. I can't do finger picking, so I'm going to go try that too. So I'm going to try my new bar chords and my finger picking, and that's all the kind of stuff that you can get on your website. Is that correct?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and those are nylon strings. Just since you said it sounded kind of peaceful, they're more mellow.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if anybody wants to check out the website, that's great. And like I said, if they have a question about anything, they can reach out. I'd be happy to talk to people more.
Awesome. So what's the best way we can support you? For anybody listening, how can we best support you? Just go to the website?
Yeah, I guess in terms of this whole topic, that's probably the best thing. But also, check out the album. That might be kind of fun. So we'll make sure you have a link to at least one of the places where people can listen to that. And then, if they have any thoughts about it or want to give any feedback, I'd love to hear it.
There you go. And we have your email address. So your email address, the website, a link to Cows Never Die, She Wears Mittens will be on the website as well. Everything will be there. They can find you there, email you there as well. Man, thanks. This was fun. Thanks for reaching out. It's such a small world, and you just never know what an email is going to lead to. So I appreciate your time tonight. I've learned some things. I'm going to go practice those, and I look forward to going to the site and find out even more. And besides that, thank you too. Again, I know we kind of made light of it, but thank you for serving on the front lines during a pandemic, regardless of how much hours you were there. That's we're all very grateful for those that were doing that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And my pleasure talking with you. Thanks for taking the time. Enjoyed it.
Very cool. All right. Well, I will be in touch via email. I will get this up soon. So thanks for your time. Everybody go check out the website, and we'll definitely go check out the album as well.
Sounds good.
Good luck to you. Thank you very much, Ben. Have a good night.
Thanks. All right. You too.
Bye-bye.